Hey there, this is Atul from Team K29 Academy, and in this video, I'm going to talk everything that you must know about AWS Certified Machine Learning Associate MLA-C01 certification. We'll talk things like what is the certification path. We'll also take some of the common questions, which I'm going to show you in a minute, but we'll take also things like what are the domain-wise topics that you should be learning. We'll cover and go a little bit deeper into each of these domains, and we'll also cover what each of these things mean and you need to understand. We'll also look at the documentation which AWS refers in order to so that you can understand end to end. So I'll give you all these documentation link is including the exam preparation that comes from AWS as well as the sample exam questions. I'll also give you some other sample exam questions which we've collected over a period of times, these practice tests, also practice tests that are freely available from AWS side as well. And if you have to go deeper, more things, I'll talk about that as well. We'll also look at the other documents that you can refer, which are available on website, which are all free. You can refer them as well. And also some of the common questions that you might have, which might be, oh, is it even worth about this doing this certification? What kind of a job roles I can do? What are the prerequisites for doing that? What is the passing score? Do I need to, is there any negative marking? What kind of a jobs I'm going to do? Is it worth doing the certification? What should be doing after this or before this as well? So anything and everything that you can think of probably will be covered inside this video. So pay special attention and make sure you watch till the end so that you get full picture on this. So as I said, we're going to cover everything that you need to know if you're preparing for the certification, or maybe you already started your preparation, or you're just doing a recap, or you're planning to do it in the next 3-4 months or 6 months or next 1 year. As long as you're doing it, this is good enough for certification. So we'll beginning with first is about where does the certification fall inside the AWS, and some of the things if you already know, you can fast forward, skip that part, and then move on to or play it in 2x if I'm going too fast, slow. If I'm going too fast, you can reduce the like the pace at which you're doing. And also just to let you know, this video will be also available inside this video where you're watching this. I'm assuming it's available here. And below all these program step-by-step instructions, videos, labs, and the pathwise, like for example, module-wise, that you should be learning in the order in which learning, right from AWS data ingestion to the services to store the data, data transformation, ETLs, model development, deployment, operations, security, all those things will be in that particular part, and just below this video place where you'll be watching this as well. So the overall, if you look at the certification point, there are foundation level certification, there's a associate level certification, then you have a professional certification, and you have a specialist certification. And foundation, there is a AI practitioner, which is related to machine learning. But then from this certification, which I'm talking about, machine learning associate, as name suggests, this is under the associate level that you see. Other thing, there's also a machine learning specialist, which has been on quite some time now on that was there. But recently, when I say recently, I'm recording this. So then in September 2024, I think it's 16th or 13th or 13th of September 2024, AWS announced two these certifications, which was AWS practitioner or AWS AI practitioner, which is a foundation level certification, and then you have a machine learning associate, and this is what we are going to talk about. Now, you can directly write exam. It's always recommended to know about AI practitioner, but you can write directly. A lot of guys write down directly on machine learning as well. Now, there are four. We could for in order for you to do good in this exam, you should have some familiarity with AI, machine learning, and generative AI as well. We'll talk about as well. Now, if you to go deeper, the video, I'm going to also have some more stuff about this certification, which is AWS MLA. MLA stands for Machine Learning Associate 11. That's free blog on our available on blog. That's where I'm going to be constantly updating this, and you'll also get tons of value by going into this. So you can worth watching this here. What is this exam and whatever cost, all those things, whatever is not covered here will be covered there on this part as well. So it's worth looking at this, and I'm going to put this video um, on all about difference between a specialist and associate and so on, and some of the common questions. So it's worth. Also, we recommend a list of hands-on lab that will give clarity to what we are going to discuss about today. So worth watching these are looking at these certifications as well, the hands-on lab. But these hands-on lab will also be available here, which is you see all those guides will be here. These are all step-by-step hands-on lab. There'll be video guides that will be available. So just to give an example on, I think you've already S3 buckets, because they'll be using extensively for when you do lake house, or so that's when how do you create and so on will probably be visible here. Oh, so these links that you'll see here. So totally worth looking at this certification list of all the hands-on lab and the project that you should be doing. So there'll be project link as well on in order to be successful on that. If you go scroll down below, you'll see all these hands-on lab that you should be performing. So it's worth looking at that. Now, looking at the exam structure, there are total 4 domains. And in domain 1, you have data preparation and for machine learning because everything revolves around data. So data preparation, that's around 28%. If you look at then model development, that's around 26% where you develop the model, train the model, and then test and retest. And then this is where you're mostly part done by developers that will be doing. This is mainly done by data engineers and data scientists and one, but it could be for everything as a machine learning engineer as well. Now, domain 3, which is around 22%, this is where you deploy and orchestrate or use machine learning workflows, deploy and test these as well. And then finally, domain 4 is about 24%, which is around machine learning solution monitoring. How do you monitor that? How do you maintain it? How do you do the infrastructure part as well as securing the whole domain? And this whole 4 domains are coming from the machine learning life cycle, where you begin with developing or deciding the business goal, what the goal is for that machine learning. Then you go for framing the machine learning problem so that you can see it's implemented and being used sometime whether that problem statement is being solved by the goal that you had it tied to and being served or not. So the actual, and then once your model problem is framed, then you begin with the data processing, and that's basically part of domain 1. Ideally, they should be putting this domain a business goal and machine learning problems framing as well in the certification, but unfortunately that's not there right now. But there might be, you might expect some questions around these topics, but actual domain wise, it's broken down right from a domain processing. Domain 2 is about, data processing. Domain 2 is model deployment, development. How do you develop these model machine learning models? Then it's about deployment and then monitoring. These are the 4 paths you have in. Now, this is all machine learning life cycle, which is nothing but as I said in the comment, and it's worth looking at these comments as well, which will be coming handy to you. It's a cyclic iterative process to for the including best practices to develop, deploy, and train and cross-train these machine learning workloads. Now, for those who are complete beginner, just wanted to give you a high-level overview. AI versus machine learning versus generative AI. AI is the top layer. Below that, you have machine learning. Then that you have a deep learning, and then you have a generative AI. If you want to read more about these differences between AI, machine learning, generative AI, probably worth looking at this blog, which is link on AI Machine Learning 18. And then we'll be constantly updating this blog. We'll be adding more things like what are the services with respect to AWS, and then we'll be adding more specific services on AWS side, Azure side, Microsoft Azure side, Google side to give you more idea about this on as well. So worth looking at that. Now with that, let's look at the first domain, which is data preparation. Domain 1, which has 3 parts, which is around 28%, ingesting and storing the data. What does it mean? Transforming the data and then performing feature engineering. What does feature engineering means? And then finally, third point is about ensuring the data integrity and preparing the data model. So this is in a high level data preparation where you collect the data, process the data, which means clean format. We'll explain you in a minute here, and then transform the data and some of these features as well. Now, one of the questions which when I started my journey a couple of years back, I always had what does feature engineering means? So feature engineering is nothing but this is a phase or this is a part in data preparation phase of machine learning, which is the process of transforming the raw data into a meaningful data so that it can be used for machine learning model as well. So these are nothing but attributes and variables used by the model to make the predictions. And we'll see that later part when we go deeper into feature engineering. That's when I'll explain you what these means are. So if you look at the ingesting the data and data store, these are the different things that you should be learning and understanding from it. Ingesting the data store, which is what is data format means. So data when stored can be stored in a different format, which could be Apache Parquet, JSON, which is JavaScript object notation, CSV comma separated value. This will be ORC model, Avro, record ID, record IO. So you can read all of these comments here so that you can read further about each of these models. Also, or the types, the data types, because these data types will be used. Your data might be coming from different sources, different data types, and then you bring them into a lakehouse. This is whole process about, or whether depending on it could be data warehouse, it could be data lake, it could be lakehouse, or it could be stored in multiple places, different ways. So all these formats you should be familiar with. And if you want to go deeper, you can see what these formats means and what are the advantages and disadvantages, what are the basically different types and what each of these data types is familiar for. So it's worth looking and understanding these data format types. Then the next topic you should be knowing within ingesting the data store is what are the data sources services available on AWS that you can use to store the data. So it could be Amazon S3, which is nothing but an object storage where you can store the data in a flat file, CSV, images, movies, whatever you do. S3 is one of them. EBS, which is a block storage, you should be familiar with the block storage. EFS, which is a file share or file system, which is for Linux-based file systems, or FSX for a Windows-based shared file system. So these are different data sources from a normal storage point of view. But then you also have the streaming data sources, and streaming data is where data is constantly coming from a IoT device, for example, or my car device, or maybe for whatever devices that I'm doing. And for that, you should be having the solutions like Amazon Kinesis, which is nothing but an overall platform for that helps you to collect, process, analyze the real-time streaming data. Very important. Now within stream Kinesis, you have a different services that you should be following with. So as name suggests, first is a Kinesis data stream that's mainly for data, which is on a real-time data coming from data-specific stream that are coming for. So it could be examples like your application log files, website click stream, or website people are clicking on those sensor data, etc. as well. And you can look at these examples. I'm not going to go deeper into because I'm also conscious of the time, but you can read that so that if you're making yourself comfortable and familiar. And later inside the program, we're going to go and cover all these things in respective modules, and we're going to go deeper into. Today on this video, I'm just giving you a 30,000 foot view. That's something you need to know and understand. Now here, Kinesis video stream. So let's suppose you have a platform which is constantly sending the data on for video, home security, you have a cameras, or you have a offices where the cameras are doing, and you want someone to analyze that or process the data. So you have a Kinesis video stream. You also have a Kinesis data firehose. Firehose is basically you're holding the data file somewhere and then pushing and publishing. So firehose to move the data from in real-time streams to any storage or analytics related services. So it also do a lot of other processing. So make sure yourself familiar with like it can do transform the data. It can deliver the data to storage services like S3 we saw. There's other storage services like databases. You have a Redshift or Elasticsearch for further analysis and so on. So worth looking at these use cases. Now, you might have a question, oh, but I already have the data stream. So why I'm using data firehose? So they both have different use cases. So maybe have a good understanding about each of these services that you should be doing. Also, then from a streaming point of view, you also have Amazon's managed services for Apache Flink. So Apache Flink is an open source streaming processing engine that helps and support both event-driven um, or batch processing, both of those. And then implementation of that Apache Flink on managed as a managed service on AWS is your Amazon's managed service for Apache Flink. Similarly, you have managed streaming for Apache Kafka. Now, Kafka again is an open source streaming platform, distributed streaming platform for building some real-time data pipelines and streaming applications. And if you've done the data certification or a part of our data engineering, we are going anyway deeper into these things in data engineering part as well. So there's another certification called Data Engineer Associate. This is where you probably might be going and learning deeper into these topics as well. So make sure you are familiar with, you've done some hands-on lab related to these. And then you have a Amazon AppFlow, which is nothing but a fully managed service for to transfer the data from your SaaS-based applications. It could be Google Analytics, it could be Salesforce, it could be Oracle Recipe ERPs and or ServiceNow, and then bringing them into AWS-specific services like S3 or Redshift or Athena, and without writing any piece of code, you do kind of a, if you've heard of MuleSoft or an Oracle, you have other services like that for doing. So make sure you're familiar with that. Then you have you should be familiar with what are the options available, what are these compared these, especially S3 or EBS or EFS, and some may or may not be even suitable, but what are the pros and cons if a particular storage options are available with have multiple options. Or you probably might want to also learn and understand DynamoDB, which is nothing but a fully managed NoSQL database service on AWS Cloud, so probably worth looking. You should also be familiar with the data ingestion service, data services, or sorry, all the AWS services right from data ingestion, which could be Lambda, which is serverless. It could be data processing, Elastic MapReduce, EMR, or Glue, which is for ETL tools. Apache Spark, which already saw seen earlier, or Amazon Kinesis, which you've heard just we have covered. For data transformation, where you have to transform from one format to another, or ETL jobs, extract, transform, load, or ELT, extract, load, and transform, you have AWS Glue for that. You also have a data storage options like S3, as I said, RDS, relational data services for maybe Microsoft SQL Server or Oracle database or Postgres and so on. And then you have Amazon Redshift, which is the data warehousing solution proprietary from AWS. And then for data orchestration, you have step up function. So all these services, you should be at least have a good understanding, especially for ingestion and data storage source as well. Now, I've taken a slightly longer, but I want to go data processing plays a key role onto this or you should be good about data processing, or we say EDA, exploratory data analysis. These are some of the services you should be familiar with based on the type of service and the data processing or storage options available for each of these data types. So worth looking at that. So that's about 1.1, which is domain one topic. Then you also have a transforming and performing the feature engineering. And this is where you have data cleansing, data transformation, and then you need to know some of the things like basically outlier detection. So it could be that some things are outrightly may not be possible. I will say that someone's height 10 feet may not be right. So it's a outlier detection or deduplication. There might be duplicate values. How do you remove? So this is what now we are cleaning the data and transforming the data and cleaning the data as well. Or you might have some missing data. How do you populate that missing data? It could be there are different techniques available for that. So we'll be covering all these things inside that as we go inside the program deeper into these things. So there might be removal of, if there's any extra data, we might totally remove the data itself, that particular column or that particular row, we remove them. Or maybe there's an imputation mean median mode method. There'll be key nearest neighbor or KNN method, backward and forward fill and so on. Now there's a feature engineering. That's a topic in itself. You should be probably good familiar with feature engineering techniques, which is nothing but a technique in the data preparation phase of machine learning for transforming the raw data into a meaningful feature that can improve your processing of that machine learning model. So something meaningful you take out. So it could be there are different features. There are different things that you do as a part of feature engineering. Maybe I'm handling the missing or removing the missing data, or I'm normalizing and scaling them. I'm putting one hot encoding. I'm not going into deeper to these right now because we're going to go deeper as this is something for you. You should be familiar with these concepts and as you so. So also probably no, I think I'm still on this. Sorry for that. Okay, so you probably should be knowing scaling of the data or standardization of data. It should be binning, which is nothing but putting the data based on the containers and put them into different containers for feature engineering. These are some of the techniques that you should be knowing or familiar. Also, then you should be familiar with encoding, which is important for you to understand, which is nothing but process of transforming the categorical data, for example, labels or text and so on. Also, the techniques about that, which could be like one hot encoding or tokenization, which is when I'm sending the data in form of tokens and so on. Then you should also be familiar with tools that are available. We saw earlier about, I mentioned about AWS Glue, but there's another tool called Data Wrangler. So it's worth looking at what is Data Wrangler, which is a tool designed to process of data preparation for machine learning. It simplifies the data preparation phase within SageMaker. So SageMaker is a bigger tool within that for mainly for machine learning, and within that SageMaker there are multiple tools, sub-tools that you can think of that you'll be seeing and learning as a part of this, or should be knowing as a part of this certification preparation. Now, also there's a data annotation. Probably you might be familiar with already data labeling. How do you data label the data? And then we do it using tools like SageMaker Ground Truth. So SageMaker, as I said, is a bigger umbrella. Within that, there are different features or services you can talk about, which is something similar is Ground Truth, which is fully managed data labeling service. It can label the data for you. Training data based on that. So this is the whole process about data transforming the data and feature engineering. You have data coming from different sources. You have a raw data, and then you clean and transform and add some features which will then be used in machine learning, training, development, and implementation later. Now, third part within this domain one is about making sure that data integrity and preparing the data for the modeling. This is where you are finding out and pre-training the bias metrics so that to see uh, what are the basically metrics that can say or tell me towards biasness, both in terms of numeric, text, and image data. And then probably the class imbalance, where you have one particular class of data which is more compared to the other class of data, which could give you the negative or biased result when machine learning models are running. Now, you should also be familiar with, as a part of this domain, techniques to remove these biasness or address this biasness. So maybe tools like resampling, or you can synthetically generate the data for the missing data more in real on synthetically generating, so that you can remove that biasness on from the results. Also, data encryption, anonymization, compliance requirement mainly for PII, which is a personal information, identifiable information like my social security number if those are in the US, or maybe on my address, home address, my email, personal number, phone number, and so on. Or PHI, which is a health-related one, which is protected health information should not be revealed. How do I make sure that data is safe on that? Also, validating the data quality using tools like AWS Glue, Data Brew. So Glue is a service. Glue does a lot of things, but it also has a Data Brew, which is a visualization data preparation tool to clean, transform the data without writing any piece of code. So that's domain one, very extensive. I've given you, but you don't need to again take your own time to understand. And then that's when we are going to move the second, which is this is where you have a developer. This is where you, so first part was done by for data guys, and the second part is actually this is where you're developing the models. So if you look at that, typically the development or whole framework, you collect the data is the machine learning workflow. You have a data collection, EDA, exploratory data analysis, which I talk about. There's another one, which is event-driven architecture. Don't confuse it. This is an exploratory data analysis. Then you have a data pre-processing phase, and then feature engineering. This is what we have covered in the domain one. And this is where you do a model training, model evaluation, and model tuning. This is more, but these are, I think, main are these two. You can say model tuning might be in the next part, which is management and deployment, but this is where you'll be doing more as a development. It could be slightly here, slightly there, or maybe a mix of these two. But as a part of model development, you as a whosoever is developing the model, choosing the right modeling approach, which machine learning algorithms and which model we should be picking. Also then training and refining the model, and then analyzing the model performance. And this is where this is where you will be picking up, and the first thing you'll be doing is choosing the right modeling approach. So you have a machine learning algorithm, so you should be aware of, and this is a diagram worth looking, and you can read more about each of these that you want to do. So for example, you have a supervised in machine learning, so you have a supervised learning, you have unsupervised learning, and then you have a reinforcement learning. And within these, you have different methods, maybe classification, regression, clustering, decision making. And within each of these, then you have those machine learning algorithms. So depending on, you might be want to go with, depending on what problem statement you understand, and then you pick a model. Now, again, read some of these things are very common. Some things might have been heard first time, but you can make sure that you're familiar with these, and you want to go read. For example, RC of random cut forest, you can read out more documents on from here, which is part of unsupervised algorithms from SageMaker. Or you should also be familiar with managed AI. So what happens is AWS already have the AI services like recognition or translate or Bedrock. So recognition, as name suggests, basically recognize something, you give it and it'll recognize that particular things. Again, there's a hands-on labs. Inside that, if you go, there'll be managed AI. Below that, you'll see models training. Inside that, you will see those labs going forward. So then you have a translate, as name suggests, it converts maybe from one language to another language and so on. Then there are more. I'm just giving just few of example here. There's a Lex and there's a lot of other things. Bedrock is mainly for generative AI. So if you're doing generative AI models, if you're as a part of this, you probably, depending on, you might already have the generative AI in that we go a very extensive Bedrock labs. Also, there are some inbuilt SageMaker algorithms, which should be familiar and understand, and maybe you can read out, and these links should be visible to you, and refer to them. What are the machine learning algorithms by default that comes built-in algorithms that comes in SageMaker that you see. Similarly, if you go further down, then interpretability, and then also model selection. How do you select them? based on the business requirement, based on the problem statement that you have for these models. So these are the things that you should be knowing on as a part of still not doing. Okay. So again, try these out. Then once you have identified the model, then it's time to train the model and refine the model. And this is where you have the training process, and this is where you will be using some of these processes to understand it. So one of them is about this, where you can where you give one complete pass for the entire training data set through the machine learning model. And you'll see some use cases examples. So let's suppose we have a data set with 1,000 samples, and you have 10 epochs you have decided. So model will go through 1,000 samples, 10 times of that. Similarly, you do on batch size, and then you go hyperparameter tuning. So you will see a lot of these things as you move forward inside, and maybe worth reading them and go deeper into these topics. Now, then further, how do you train the model, which is a method to improve the performance, regularization, dropouts, tuning, and so on. And then also there is a overfitting. You should be knowing how to prevent that. Underfitting, overfitting, both are bad and catastrophic for getting you forget something as a part of the model. And when I say not you, but model might. So now this is also you should be familiar with. This is very important on machine learning algorithms and machine learning libraries, TensorFlow and PyTorch. And inside the program, in fact, I think I should be doing, which we are giving you as a new bonus class, which we've added, which is MLOps. And this is where we'll be giving you those additional things which are important, which may not be from an AWS point of view, but key concepts you'll be adding more and more of what is TensorFlow and what is difference between PyTorch and TensorFlow, which one to use and want to use, what are the comparison of those. Plus, then similarly feature engineering, and we'll be adding more and more content around that. So make sure that you become familiar with the algorithms and libraries which are available that SageMaker can use, which is SageMaker is nothing but a main machine learning tool that you will be using and so on. Then for model performance, there are evaluation metrics that you should be familiar with, and things like F1 score or RMSC. I think the missed, I'll update the content here. Or then above the curve, or and then ROC, these metrics you should be familiar with. Then also, how do you identify underfitting and overfitting? Probably you said that you shouldn't be doing, but how do you do that as well? Also, there's another service called Clarify within SageMaker. So as I said, there are sub-services within SageMaker, is a bigger tool. Clarify is a service to detect biasness and then also to gain more insight in the model. And then how do you debug? There's another service which is in SageMaker called Model Debugger, which can be used to debug any problems or model convergence and things like those you should be familiar with. So that's pretty much domain 2, which is, I think, also biggest chunk, if I'm not wrong. Let me go back on 26% of that if we go back onto the topic. So I think, no, so the second highest topic is about that development phase. Highest is about data preparation, 28%. And the third is about deploying and orchestrating machine learning workflows. So once you have developed it, you'll be deploying it. So maybe how do you make yourself familiar with, and this is where more about is, this is where an operations person will come. If you're part of DevOps, this is where a role will transition to MLOps that you'll be seeing. So first of all, deployment infrastructure on which you're going to deploy the infrastructure and architecture requirement based on the model. It could be, for example, SageMaker, Kubernetes. It could be Kubernetes cluster that you might be, which is nothing but ECS, Elastic Container Service, which is an implementation of Kubernetes on AWS Cloud. EKS, which is a ECS is AWS's proprietary Kubernetes cluster or Docker container orchestration tool. EKS is a Kubernetes implementation on AWS Cloud. Lambda, you can deploy in Lambda and so on. So where you want to target that, also what deployment services like SageMaker endpoints or batch inference and so on. Make sure that you are familiar with these things, as well as the best practices with respect to deployment like rollbacks, versioning, blue-green deployment. Then there is a canary deployment and so on. So all those things that you are familiar if you're coming from a DevOps background, those will be applicable here as well. Some of them, some of may not be. Also, optimizing the models for edge devices. You can deploy some machine learning model on edge devices. So you have SageMaker Neo. Make sure you become familiar with that. So this is all about is infrastructure related things. Now, when you do, you automate a lot of these infrastructure builds with tools like infrastructure as a code tools like Terraform or AWS Cloud Formation. You also have a CDK for developing, which is a cloud development kit, which is a framework for infrastructure, management of infrastructure, provisioning of infrastructure using language like Python or TypeScript or Java and so on. Then how do you provision compute instance on which you can deploy or containers and Kubernetes and so on, which we've seen earlier as well. Also, auto scaling policies. So SageMaker has its own deployment compute you can do, and it can auto scale based on the demand of machine learning models. So make sure you're familiar with. Now, if you have done DevOps, again, I'm going to talk about as if you're familiar, and again, if not, we are going to cover and help you here. But there's another certification that you see, which is AWS DevOps, which is part of professional, which we highly recommend you to do. There's a lot of demand and huge demand on that. So we cover that as a part of AWS infrastructure job-oriented program. In that, you'll be learning, or in that you're going to go deeper, but here you should be familiar with how do you automate, orchestrate for setting up CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery. So things like code pipeline, which is end-to-end CI/CD pipeline like Jenkins, or if you have GitLab pipeline and so on. Code build to build that from a code into a deployable unit, or code deploy to deploy the code and entire everything, both code build and deploy on code pipeline. Now, also, how do you automate the training and inference using Event Bridge? What is Event Bridge? Another service, which is a serverless service for event bus service. SageMaker pipeline, and this is where it will give you end-to-end CI/CD pipeline. This is an example. Let me make it slightly bigger so you understand this whole point. And again, we are going to go deeper in the MLOps program. We are going to go deeper and explain you these. Uh, yeah, so this, no, let me make it further bigger. So this is where you have the CI, continuous integration, where your developers or you as a developer will, whatever code you have developed and built, you tested, you do it in a, you generate a model, and you put it, keep it into model registry. And from there, you do CD, which is a deployment pipeline. You build the infrastructure and then deploy that onto production environment, either using CloudFormation, either using Terraform or other tools like that, maybe with the help of SageMaker, depending on what services you use. So these are, again, we're going to go deeper into when we go for MLOps. Again, let me show it to you so that you can see and understand. But this is all coming. You'll be learning this in MLOps part. So this is where you'll be seeing a lot of these things that you see. CI/CD, I'm going to talk about is on monitoring management end-to-end and so on. So CI/CDs. Okay, further down. And then fourth and final domain point is about machine learning monitoring, maintenance, and security. This is around 24%. This is where you do monitor the model. You also monitor and optimize infrastructure cost like storage, networking, mainly about networking throughputs, latency, and so on. And then how do you secure AWS services? And for this, for model monitoring, you have SageMaker model monitor, I already mentioned, but you also have a SageMaker Clarify, which is on mainly for explainability and also bias. So there is a pros and cons. Some services, some things model monitor can do, something Clarify can do. So make sure you familiar with which one for what. Also, drift is very common. So how do you detect drift in the models? Maybe because of the data, maybe because of the feature engineering, features that have selected, things have changed on that point or something else. So make sure that you are familiar with. Also, anomalies and or differences in inferences. So there is a real time and there's a batch depending on what kind of a endpoints you have, what kind of a model execution have. Accordingly, you have this model monitoring as a part of SageMaker itself, hold the tool. Again, you have the difference between model monitor versus clarify which one to, because I was confused a lot of times when we were implementing this. It'll become handy for you. Also, monitoring the infrastructure cost. So when you do and as a user, when you invoke that model, it could be there are multi-model, for example, deployments taking time to it's already never being bought into your container runtime or whatever runtime. It might take some time to load. So how do you improve that performance? Overhead. There's also a network related overhead. There will be overhead within bringing that model, invoking the model, playing with the model. So how do you all these uh, metrics, measuring those utilization scalability? Now there are tools available. So AWS comes with a lot of handy tools, and this is something might be coming handy and say why I'm going and implementing these using AWS, because these tools are quite popular and common. Tools like CloudWatch is there, Cost Explorer there for pricing. So also look at the pricing point of view. There's a Cost Explorer. We can see how much might it cost you if I run, or it will cost me and it'll give me that rough idea about that. Also, you can evaluate the costing and pricing. You can go deeper and say where the cost is coming from. Is it I've left some machines running or some models which are I'm not using infrastructure, I'm still running those services for me. Also, the trusted advisor like tools, trusted advisor is another tool which will give me recommendation on where I can save cost, security, all those 6 pillars of um, best designs that you probably get it. You'll be getting it part of this as well. Now, again, from a monitoring point of view, make sure you have what to monitor, and based on what details you want, you monitor all these metrics as well. This is an example of reporting or the price, the cost explorer, which you can filter based on maybe region, based on services, based on, there's a lot of filters you can do, and it'll give you the costing as well. And then final part of this is about securing, making sure that you are familiar with and understanding using tools like identity access management, users, groups, roles, policies, access control, and so on, permissions, and so on. Also, there's a securing entire end-to-end machine learning pipeline, machine learning resources within that pipeline using this is a service called Role Manager, SageMaker Role Manager. I think we should be giving, yeah, this is the whole SageMaker Role Manager. It's worth looking at that. Based on, you can build role based on the personas, kind of, for example, data scientist or MLOps or individual person who's end user and so on. Also, you can create some roles specific to a service which needs permission to execute some task because it's not just machine learning, but also dependent on storage, needs compute and so on. So specific service, specific permissions on that. Auditing, logging. So there are a lot of tools and services available, which is CloudTrail, CloudWatch, GuardDuty, IAM, Config. These are outside of Sage, like the machine learning tools. But then SageMaker also has its own logging and mechanism, which you can put into centralized logging, if I'm not wrong. Also, when you're deploying from a security point of view, you can deploy in a VPC, virtual private cloud, which is nothing but a network isolation. And that's where you should be doing by default VPC. There's no VPC, so how do you make sure that you configure? You can read this wonderful blog, which I'll be putting into the notes under notes section. These links about improving the security of, which is very key for machine learning. Also, there is a centralized logging and auditing mechanism on AWS Cloud and hooking in this with your machine learning. So that's pretty much on a high level that you should be doing. Once you understand the concepts, I know of talking a lot, and there's a lot to learn, but trust me, it's going to be fun when you do the hands-on lab and you perform these things. Let me close this, why it's not coming. So inside the program, we'll be covering all those things that you know and learn and understand. But I also would like to highlight some of the things that you should be doing about exam questions. So if you go inside the class cloud school, you have all the list of step-by-step hands-on labs. Sorry, the sample exam questions that you see, and we are constantly adding these questions. So currently there are 2 sets, but as you move forward, you'll see the more program becomes mature, more questions come, we'll be giving you that question answers sheet as well. So I'm not going to share it right now, but you'll be able to open and look at with the explanation and so on. Also, there is a free exam preparation. You get some sample question, I think 30 or 40. You can go and register yourself as a skill builder, worth watching in my view, preparing for the exam, register, create an account and register for that. So you can get some practice tests as well. Now, this is where I'm going to take some question answers on commonly asked questions. But if your question is not covered, leave them below this, and I'll make sure that we answer and we'll update this question answer section as we move forward, as we see more and more certification questions I see. With that, let's go and look at some of the commonly asked questions or frequently asked questions related to the certification. So first and most I commonly get is it still worth doing the machine learning certification or this AWS Machine Learning Associate? Answer is, well, it depends based on your goals and how you want to intend to use and what is the ultimate objective for you. So depending on your background, if you're technical professionals or technical audience, or you are a technical professional, or you're an aspiring machine learning engineer, then will definitely help you. If you want to keep your career, want to build your career into AI, machine learning, generative AI, then yes, absolutely machine learning, definitely. Also, what are the benefits of? Then once you get certified, it will certified, put you on resume. A lot of this, it'll give a good impression and it'll be picked up on for the interview. That doesn't mean that you can clear the interview. And this is where inside the program, we're going to talk about and give you this whole job like interview preparation, and let me show it to you, and that will come handy. So make sure you go and look at these job interview prep, this one interview prep as well as LinkedIn. Go and focus on these two things are important. Do those things very, very extensive, detailed on about this is for interview and job prep, and this is for LinkedIn. Make sure you do both of those, very important. That's number one thing for. But your it's good from a recognition point of view and LinkedIn point of view. You get automatically a credibility from AWS side. So yes, same thing is with if you're a data scientist, developer, absolutely. Now this is a little bit technical. You need a bit of coding knowledge as well. So good knowledge of that. But inside the program, we'll cover all this. So you don't need to worry about if you're new to Python as well. Inside the program, we cover Python as well. So you don't need to worry any of that thing. Will help you in Python, PySpark, anything and everything. Maybe I've done the typo. So anything and everything that you need on including data concepts that are helpful, you'll get all these as a bonus anyway. So yes, so definitely it's worth depending on your background, technical as well as developer, MLOps, which is a DevOps, next progression to DevOps, and so on. What is the passing score? So you get up to 1,000 marks, and you have to clear 750 in. Again, there are some links. The things might change. So always at the bottom, I've given an AWS reference, and this is the page you should be going and referring more in depth about this certification. So go and look at this page, which once it comes, I'll show it to you. That will have the latest information. So stay on this page. Yeah. Now, if you're going further, let me go back on the questions on passing mark I've already covered. How much does AWS AI machine learning guys paid? Good, a huge, huge amount. First of all, most important is as per the research done. Now, usually someone with a tech background usually get 40%, 47% higher than what you might be earning on without AI machine learning skill sets. So pretty good damn money. Um, Employers are still struggling with someone who's good AI machine learning generative AI experience. So I think you can't go wrong with this. These are salary things we saw in US. Let me make it bigger. And we took out on the market research and did it, and we saw that probably around 200,000 on from someone who's in US average. There are guys who are 299. In Canada, 140, which is good compared to Canada. UK, good on 100,000 plus, like 80,000 to good in this range, which is 150, 160 here. And same with India as well. So pretty good amount as well. There are tons of jobs, like as I said, 239,000 in US, very, very common as well. Now, what is the certification? I've already covered, so I'm not going to repeat this, what this certification is about. Who should take this certification? Very good question. So if you're working on as a machine learning engineer or data scientist or a software developer with who wants to learn on or implement machine learning. Now, though AWS is recommended to have one experience, but you can directly, I have a lot of guys who have learned and done it, so you can do that as well. Or someone with data engineering background or DevOps and looking to upscale into machine learning models, then yes. Or you want to validate your knowledge into SageMaker, Glue, AI/ML tools, other tools that we mentioned, then yes. Now, do I need coding skills? Unfortunately, if you're not a developer, then yes. But whatever you're going to need in terms of coding, we're going to cover inside the program: Python, TensorFlow, machine learning frameworks, and PyTorch. All those we're going to give as a bonus, so you learn all these things as well. How this certification can help, I've already mentioned, is it look good on your resume if you perform. Now, there are other certifications like AWS Machine Learning Associate and then AWS Certified AI Practitioner. Now, AI Practitioner is a foundation level beginner on basics of AI that's more focused towards AI, whereas machine learning is more about is, as your name is associate level, a little bit more deeper, and it's more on a machine learning and SageMaker. So here you'll be going deeper into these skills that you see here. Now, what are the other certifications we can do or after, before, or during? I think other ones which are hugely popular are AWS Solution Architect Associate. I think this is one of the most important critical, will help you. So definitely this. Or DevOps is again hugely in demand, DevOps. Or other one is AI engineer if you're not done, in my view. Or once you have already done AI engineer, then you probably go for a specialist of machine learning associate. This is another one as well. Now, prerequisite, as such, there is no prerequisite. You can directly write exam. You don't need even any practitioner. You don't need any experience. You can directly write. But then it's always good to have some experience my suggestion to you would be go through the hands-on lab which you've been given, and then do go for. Also, make sure you're comfortable with services like SageMaker, Glue, EC2s, Athena, Kinesis, whatever skills which I mentioned earlier. Those are important for you as well. So that's pretty much I'm going to cover. There are a lot of technical questions. We'll have separately other lot of questions which we go inside the program. So we'll learn and we will cover in there. But I don't want to go deeper into this more than because video is already longer. But I hope you got these are all the modules inside the program that we will see and broken down into also those four domains and been further extended. We go with data ingestion, uh, EBS and Kinesis. We go and look at, and these are hands-on lab. All those things you'll be learning inside the program, so I'm not going to repeat it. There's a separate video covering this with all the extensive hands-on labs as well. Now, references, go to these videos which are links which are given. The link to this page or this guide will be below this video as well that you see. Also make sure that you go through these references on AWS side. These are pretty good references as well. And I'm going to extend this one thing also inside the program. I'm going to add this, which is some exam preparation kits being done. So let me show it to you what I mean by and where to find it. So search for machine learning associate. This is the certification. If you go and under that you have a quick link, and here I've got done and saying these 5 episodes, these are done by AWS guys. I'm going to put them copy paste into this below this here, and that these will find handy as well for you on below this. But you can otherwise you can come here and you look at these under quick links, and I'll be doing and helping you as well. So with that, that's pretty much me, Atul. I hope you found it video useful. Again, as I said, any questions you can post in our community here or below this video, leave a comment, and I'll make sure we'll go deeper into these as we move forward. This is just a first step, which is going to watch it here, and I'm going to put it on place where you can watch it and let me know if you need any help. With that, this is Atul from Team Keton Academy. Watch, do, perform, act, and block a date for you for certification so we can help you in your journey. Also look at some of these extra URLs. So let me know how it goes, and we'll look forward to in the next video. Again, take care and bye for now.
Thank you so much for staying with us till the end of the video. Now all you have to do is just click the link in the description below, or if you are just starting out, just type k21academy.com/AWSAIML02. Now, in this page you can enter your name, enter email ID, enter phone number, and click on book your free seat now. Then you will be taken to a thank you page. Now you can add this session to a Google Calendar or Apple Calendar, and I promise this is something that you don't want to miss. So go ahead, click on the link and step into the world where learning knows no boundaries. Till then, keep enjoying. I'll see you in the next video.